KBLA Talk 1580. We fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck B. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power!
Still Snoop Dogg and D.I.
Guess who's back?
Still doing that shit, Andre?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Check me out. It's still Dre Day, AK. Though I've grown a lot, can't keep it home a lot. Cause when I frequent the spots that I'm known to rock, you hear the bass from the truck when I'm on the block. Ladies, they pay homage, but haters say Dre fell off. How? My last album was The Chronic. They wanna know if he still got it. They say raps change, they wanna know how I feel about
if
it.
You ain't up on pace.
Dr. Dre is the name, I'm ahead of my game. Still puffin' my leaf, still with the beats. Still not loving police. Still rock my khakis with a cuff and a crease.
You are listening to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and we are joined in this hour by Assemblymember Sade El-Hawari, representing California's 57th Assembly District, and making sure that we started off this hour remembering where we are and what we represent with her music selection. Right. We heard Assemblymember Isaac Bryant say yesterday, and we played a clip of him, Assemblymember El-Hawari, with him saying California standing on business. And so,
yes, we are.
So thank you all for what you did in the state legislature. I was thinking about you actually in my Senator Lola Smallwood Cuevas when everything was going down in Texas, and particularly over the last few days when we saw Representative Nicole Collier being detained in the state capitol, right, for refusing to sign some freedom papers or something. I don't know what they were asking them to do.
Right.
But basically, right, a slip of paper that said you were not allowed to move around. And thinking about you all, and particularly you, because you are a new Assembly member, right, and watching Black women state legislators in another state, right? Right. Both holding the line, right? But being attacked, right? In attempts at, frankly, at humiliation. So I wonder, how you were feeling watching what was unfolding in Texas, not just in terms of how the Assembly members were being treated there, but just watching the attempt to, fight back against something that many thought would just be inevitable, right? And would just happen. And yet we've seen this long delay that gave us enough time, or gave them enough time for the rest of the country to get hip, right, to what's happening there.
And that's exactly what they wanted. I actually had a chance to stand with some of the Texas Democrats, the senators, who had been at a conference with some of us in Boston, and they talked about the reason why we need to push is because we need everybody to know, because this is not the first time it's happened. And the last time they did it, they were like, we didn't know enough about how we could get the word out. Like, they're organizing us, you know what I mean? Like, they're really helping to, and so I was so inspired by seeing Representative Nicole Collier, like, to see her stand and really be about it and say, I am not willing to sign something that doesn't even come with any real backing, that we know doesn't actually have, like a constitutional purpose. It doesn't come from anywhere that, we have to say that we're not willing to just go ahead and rock with whatever they're trying to make us do, because that's the threat, the threats and intimidation that they want us to fall for. And the fact that she wasn't falling for it, the fact that we get to stand with her, I think as somebody who is a new a representative, somebody who could see another Black woman doing that, I'm like, man, like, we need more Black women in here so that we can keep pushing in a real way, like it was beautiful.
And how are your colleagues in the state capitol in Sacramento, viewing this moment right now? I mean, I know folks realize that this is a moment for folks to step up, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But how are folks looking at what's happening right now, and understanding their role in history, quite frankly, right now?
No, truly, that's what I was gonna say. It's so historic, right? Like, this year has been crazy, like, in general, but this moment is so historic. And I think yesterday the speaker really said, like, when we were preparing to go out onto the floor, y'all, like, be ready. This is it. This is the moment. This is the what we're doing is going to set a precedent across the country for how we fight back against an absolutely abominable administration at the federal level. And if we aren't willing to do that, we allow this administration to literally roll over. Like, we cannot let that happen. And so what is incredible is the ways that we are really locking arms, no matter where we stand. I think, we're Democrats, and we got each other's back, but we also know that we have different views on things. And this has really pushed us in a way that I think is incredible to see. I feel humbled in this moment to know that I knew that when I got elected, and the same night he got elected, that I would be on the front lines with the California state legislature. But we are now truly on the front lines with our governor, who is doing an amazing job of trolling the shit out of him too, which is amazing. And so we're really grateful that we get to do this all together, right? Like, that's what this is about, that we can't do it alone,
Representative, you about to get me put off the air.
Sorry.
Let me. I want to talk to you a little bit more about preparing, right, for the upcoming election, and because now is that will be real, and then also just talk to you a little bit about. I mean, there is this reality about this sort of attack, not just on democracy, not just on representation. As I was talking with our guest from Texas earlier in the show, but we also know that our city has been under attack as well, right, along with other Black-led cities in the same way. So I want to talk about that with you as well when we come forward. So much more with Assembly Member Sade El-Hawari from the 57th Assembly District when we come forward. Stay with us. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Lowe's has the Labor Day deals you need to give your home a new look. Buy one, get one free select interior paint via Visa gift card rebate. Then, add the final touch with 2 for $8 on select 2.5 or 3-quart mums. Refresh your home and save big while doing it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Mums offer in-store only. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. More terms and restrictions apply. See Lowe's.com/rebates for details.
Whoa, it's you, the Capital One Bank guy.
That's what they call me.
Mind if I get a selfie?
Yeah, sure thing. Say no fees or minimums on your Capital One checking account.
Wow, that's a keeper. So, where are you heading?
I'm off to spread the good news that Capital One helps people keep more money in their wallet with no overdraft fees.
Oh, you're the best Capital One Bank guy.
Hey, mind if I get a selfie?
Sure.
Say, Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and I am here with Assemblymember Sade El-Hawari, who is representing her constituents in the best possible way, making them proud in the California Assembly. Assemblywoman, I want to ask you just about to help us break down the votes that you all took yesterday. So we've been talking about the redistricting battle. We talked earlier in the show with an organizer from Texas that's been helping to do mobilization and supporting the Democratic legislators there. We have been watching Governor Gavin Newsom say if Texas takes this step, California will counter. Right. As you said, he has been hysterically trolling the president of the United States in ways that are so deeply, I can't, I imagine the president of the United States must just go crazy every time one of these new memes pops up. And then everyone else has sort of gotten in on it, right? Like now there's a whole meme factory, right? There's a whole Gavin Newsom meme factory that has emerged with a new meme every hour, it feels like. But the reality is that you all, the California legislature yesterday, took steps, right, to begin to counter what Texas is attempting to do. Can you explain to our listeners about what the 3 redistricting related measures are that passed yesterday? And then I want to talk about what that means for getting to November.
Yeah, so we passed 3 different measures yesterday. The first one was ACA 8, which was really talking about how we get the ballot measure focused specifically on how we're requiring the state to use new maps. And so in order for that to happen, we want to take it to the voters. So the ballot measure means that we voted to get this onto the ballot directly, which is an opportunity that we get to do at that level of the legislature, and using new congressional boundary lines that are drawn by this commission until the next time we have the census and that we draw those new lines. That's the first thing we did. The second is AB 604, which is really about the actual maps themselves, the lines. We voted on what are these lines that we want to see on that ballot that folks can come vote for. And the last one, it actually had to set the special election. That's SB 280. It set the date as in November, and it's going to be Prop 50. That special election will be Prop 50, that ballot measure we talked about, which will adjust the election rules to meet those timelines. Because oftentimes you can't, have an election go this quickly. And so we have to kind of vote on adjusting it in a way that really works for us to make it happen by November. Okay.
So 1 was to get it on the ballot itself. 2 was the maps and the lines, right? And then 3 was the special election. And so folks should be looking for this redistricting measure has been given a name, and it is Prop 50.
Yes, exactly. And the maps are posted and give folks an opportunity to start looking at it now, so that when they vote on November 4th, they are very clear on actually being a part of that process.
Okay, and folks can go look at the maps on what site? Can they get them from your web? How do they go and look?
I'm going to get that to you. I'm going to get that to you, but I think it's on the Secretary of State's website.
Okay. So I think it's important because I think that sometimes, it's not entirely clear to people what has actually happened, right? Like I can imagine that folks that think that, oh, well, they just passed the maps, right? Which is not a thing that you all did. It is a thing that has to go.
Nope,
it has to go
did
to
not.
the voters, right? It has to be on the ballot. Voters have to approve it. And so it's important that folks know that that's not what you all voted to do yesterday. You voted to put it on the ballot for a special election November 4th. And that what will be on the ballot is a set of maps under a ballot measure currently called Prop 50. Right.
Exactly. We purposely wanted to be different from Texas, who's going straight to do it themselves and just taking the voters out of the process, literally silencing voices in that process.
Yeah. And I think again, like I'll just ask you again about why it is so important for California to step up in this moment. When we were talking earlier in the show with Risha Thomas from the Texas Black Action Fund, we were talking about how Texas is, that folks in Texas understand that this is not just about Texas protecting Texans, right? That this is much bigger than that, and that this California's decision to step to weigh in isn't just about California protecting California or even California protecting Texas, right? That it really is kind of a historic moment that you all have decided to weigh into.
Right. In this moment, we know that it's a real fight for democracy. It's a real fight for people to continue to be represented by folks that they actually want to represent them. And when we think about nationally what's happening, and when we think about even Stacey Abrams talked about it in the 10 steps toward autocracy, right? The fact that this one man wants to have absolute power, we are now on step 10, which is about literally taking over the elections, the voting. He's rigging it in such a way. And so we know that if we don't fight back right now, we will absolutely have what we know is our worst nightmare, right? Like the way the United States was created was to literally overthrow a king, and now a king wants to come back. And so it's huge to ensure that we have real power that belongs in the hands of the people. People power is what we're all about, and we have to make sure that we do what we can to return that power back to them.
And it's important to have that extra layer of participation, right? To get regular folks involved in this process. Talk about that a little bit, because I think that sort of leads us to the question of what do we need to do to make sure that people are engaged in November?
Yes. So, for us, and I'm an organizer, right? And so none of this happens without us making sure that we're talking to people and helping them really understand, right? That civic engagement, the education, it's part of why I think even the memes and the trolling are so helpful, because they connect to people in a way that helps them understand that maybe, like, I don't know the word redistricting, maybe I don't know the word gerrymandering, but what I do understand is how do we fight, right? Fire with fire, and how do we why do we need an election? Why is this election taking place? How do I actually get my voice heard? Oh, I have a chance to actually vote on the lines, right? And so what we have to do is continue to really get folks involved. And the importance of it is that in this moment, democracy is literally on the line, and people will have the opportunity to actually make that happen, right? And that solidarity, that opportunity to say, if I'm seeing what's going on with the federal level, they're literally kidnapping people. I don't want that to happen anymore. That won't change unless we get a chance to actually be a part of this process to take that power back.
Yeah, and that's important, because I think that there's a lot of ways in which all this is being framed, right? So you have some people out there saying, well, this is not great because this is, it's just some kind of retaliation, right? Or that, this is not how, this is not how this should be done, right? There's a process, and the process is this, and all that might be true, but we're not really living in that timeline of America anymore, right? Like we're in a very different timeline.
We're not.
Right now. And so I just wonder how, because I think this is part of the convincing, one, I think the first step is educating voters, because I also think that we would be doing a disservice and actually, not being honest with ourselves if we said that every voter in California is paying attention to what's happening right now, right? I think that's probably, that is unlikely the case, right? So there's a part of this is about educating folks on what's happening in the ballot initiative, et cetera. And some of it is also about this sort of broader conversation about why it's important and why it's happening right now. How do you think about the ways in which we're going to be able to, the things that we're going to have to do? I know you're an organizer, I know you're a good organizer, but the ways in which we're going to need to make sure that folks have the information that they need and know that this, historic in so many ways vote is going to be coming up in November. What do we need to do to get the word out and make sure that people turn up?
Yeah, well, one, we know that more than 50% of people get their news from social media, and it is going to matter how we get that information out, right? And making sure that we're repeating that message over and over, and not just a message of, here's why you need to vote for this. No, the message of, let me educate you on what just happened, why it's happening, how you can get involved if you want to be involved and help spread the word too, because we need to keep reposting and posting and doing it again. But we also need to be helping the media to understand, right? Because they like the sensationalized. They love the Newsom Trump, beef.
Right.
But we can't just allow it to be about the beef. It has to be about, well, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? We have to do it on multiple languages. We need to do it on Black media. We need to do it on Latino media, right? We need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to get that. But we also need to be knocking on doors. We need to be making those phone calls. We need to text our folks. We need to get our folks to tell their friends, right, and their family. And I think in this particular moment, it's also how do we break it down so much that they really get what's happening? Because redistricting and gerrymandering are not words that people are just automatically going to say, oh, I understand that. And so how do we help just shift it just a little bit so that our folks are like, oh, of course, that's wrong. Like, wait, I'm of course I'm voting for that. Of course I don't want Trump and Texas to literally erase our voices in California across the nation when we know that Trump is doing such a bad job. He's so threatened by us, threatened by the voters, that he's willing to take away our voices. And so really making sure that they get those nuances. And I think I think youth involvement in this moment is also so huge, because the young people are the ones that make things go viral, and the fact that things kind of push out in that way is when you'll hear somebody say, oh, I heard about such and such. I'm like, yeah, that's a young person who helped stir that up and make that go real far and wide.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of connecting of dots here that I think that people will be able to get. And so there's this sort of, and this is an attack. I mean, I don't think we should just see it as something that's like procedural, right? This idea that we're drawing the maps in order to not right. Like it's not just procedural. Like there's something much more fundamental to it. I mean, you talked about kind of democracy's on the line, and I think sometimes we don't sort of dig deep enough even about what democracy means. Like freedom is actually on the line here, and we can tie it to so many other things that I think folks have been experiencing, both around the country, but certainly now in Washington, D.C., and certainly here in L.A. When we think about this as a part of this broader attack, right, on us. When we think about you said people are being disappeared off the streets, right, snatched up, kidnapped, no one knows where they are. The sort of expansion of military presence that we saw here in Los Angeles, that the sitting president of the United States is threatening to do more of, right? When he continues to say, I'm sending, I'm gonna militarize, folks in Chicago and in Baltimore and in Los Angeles and in Oakland. Clearly all Black-led cities. I don't think any of us should be, again, just like the districts that are being erased. We're talking about erasing Black and Brown representatives. The cities that he's attacking are also led by Black folks. And so I just wonder your thoughts on making those connections for folks, that this is Project 2025, happening in front of our eyes. But this is also, again, an attempt to reduce our voices, to reduce our power, and to eliminate our representation in our government.
Yeah, I think something you talked about earlier too is the piece around, is this just retaliation? Absolutely not. This is not a fight we started, but we can't sit it out. We have to understand that if we allow them to just move forward and we, try to take the moral high ground, we are going to end up like way behind, and we're going to see our National Guard, our military, continue to be, and not just in black led cities, but we know that that's what's happening right now. That's the experiment. You start there, and then where does it go? Right. Because we allowed it to happen, and so this really does take on because it's so unprecedented. We have to respond in an unprecedented way, and we have to say that we're willing to do whatever it takes, and that representation for our communities is. I love what you said, right? We are fighting for freedom. We are literally fighting for our freedom, and if we just sit back, we are going to see this get worse and worse, because everything we've seen up until this point is much worse than any of us ever imagined. Right. None of us realized or thought that it could get this bad and this quickly, right? We are 7-8 months in. And so I think what we do in this moment is so critical, and how we go about it, how we respond, and ensuring that our community members can really lock arms. This is about solidarity, because if it's happening to our Latino brothers and sisters, we've seen it happen to our Black immigrants, we've seen it happen to API communities, and that means that we have to do that even when we're doing this work. Multiracial solidarity is how we're going to win this, because we know what's happening. We know that we're fighting against white supremacy in such a real way. This white lash that happened as a result of our President Obama being in office has continued, right? And we saw the right become extremely, extremely far right. And so that's a big part of how we continue to ensure that our communities really understand that not only are we here to represent them, but that they also are going to be required to step up in this moment.
Yeah, I think that's, obviously there's the sort of steps that have been taken to get to this point by the state legislature, by the governor, right, the state legislature. But now it really is on the people of California to decide how we're going to fight, right? Yeah. The way in which people are going to stand up, and how we're going to sort of frame this, right? As not just being some, thing that California is doing, but really being clear and understanding that this is about which way we go as a nation. So Assemblymember Sade El-Hawari, representing California's 57th Assembly District, I want to thank you so much for the work that you're doing and that your colleagues are doing. Thank you. And for coming on and breaking this down to us so that folks know what y'all voted on, and that they know that they need to be prepared to do come November 4th. So thank you so much, and we will definitely get you back on to keep us up to speed on what's happening up there in Sacramento.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Of course, appreciate you too. Okay, when we come forward, we're going to have a journalist and political commentator and my sometimes co-host Anoa Changa join us to talk about Trump's ongoing war on information, Black history, and more when we come forward here on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A new study finds air pollution from U.S. oil and gas companies is hitting minorities the hardest, causing 91,000 premature deaths each year. Black, Asian, Native American, and Hispanic communities bear the biggest toll, with links to asthma, preterm births, and early deaths. There's a shakeup at New Orleans City Hall. Joe Threat has been named Chief Administrative Officer as Black Mayor LaToya Cantrell faces a federal indictment on wire fraud and obstruction charges. Threat, who's worked in various city roles since 2018, most recently oversaw infrastructure. Mayor Cantrell's court date is set for September. And HBCU Howard University's 18th president, Ben Vinson III, will step down on August 31st. Vinson, who began his tenure in September 2023, thanked the university community and reflected on advancing its strategic goals. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It looks like the drive is improving in Santa Clarita. Scene of an earlier crash north 5 at Cal Grove. The two right lanes have been blocked, but traffic seems to be picking up in the area. Tow trucks were on the scene, so hopefully things are shaping up and those lanes are reopening here shortly, if not already. The 5 northbound slowing down as a result out of Sun Valley. This is getting away from Sunland Boulevard. It's affecting the 210 westbound from the 118. Overall delays for the 405 served up from Santa Monica Boulevard to the 5 merge into Sylmar, and the 170 northbound slowing down as well, getting away from Sherman Way to the 5 merge.
Attention 405 drivers. From 10 p.m. Friday, August 22nd to 5 a.m. Monday, August 25th, the 405 will be down to 3 lanes in both directions through Sepulveda Pass. Expect delays. Plan ahead, take alternate routes, or use public transit. Follow at Caltrans District 7 for updates.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The first college football game of the 2025 season is an HBCU matchup. Tomorrow night in Atlanta, North Carolina Central and Southern University will meet up in the SWAC MEAC Challenge. Southern is a longtime member of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. North Carolina Central is in the Mideastern Athletic Conference. ABC will have live coverage at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. This is the final weekend for NFL preseason games. It's a last chance opportunity for players battling for a roster spot. All teams will be making final cuts on Tuesday to reach the 53-man roster limit. With 3 weeks left in the regular season, the WNBA has set a new attendance record with 2.5 million fans going to games. The previous mark was set in 2002 when the WNBA had 16 teams. The league has 13 teams today. The LA Sparks rank 4th in the WNBA with an average attendance of 12,234. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
JP Morgan Chase offers tips for the local business owners in 2025. Small business landscape is ever changing, and the Los Angeles market is no exception. A startup or legacy business, revisiting your mission statement and recalibrating offerings can renew opportunities for growth and innovations. Programs like Chase for Business Coaching for Impact gives entrepreneurs access to expert guidance, helping you streamline operations, strategize your growth, and navigate complex challenges. Businesses with a clear sense of purpose can navigate any challenge effectively, but also build stronger customer loyalty. Visit chase.com/coaching for impact for more information. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I am joined in this hour to talk, I think, about many things by journalist and political commentator Anoa Changa to talk about Trump's ongoing war on Black history in our museums. But Anoa, I also feel like we should just talk about some of the other news that's happening as well. I was scrolling, unfortunately, during the commercial break. I mean, we spent the last hour and a half talking about the redistricting battle, both what's happening in Texas and also with Assemblymember Sade El-Houari about the steps that are being taken here in California to counter. And all of that is happening in the backdrop of what is happening in our nation's capital. Right. And so we know that, Trump deployed the National Guard to D.C. along with other federal agents who are, setting up literal checkpoints, right, stopping folks. I was saying last week that it's like we live in a military dictatorship where in countries where I have been, right, where you get stopped by the military, right, to get from one point in town to the next with guns drawn. That is not supposed to be America, and it certainly is not supposed to be the nation's capital. But then we started seeing him call for other states to call up their guard, right, to send to D.C. It is not lost on anyone that the majority of those guards will be coming from Confederate states. It is not lost on anyone that South Carolina tried for 4 years to occupy Washington, D.C. during the Civil War and was not able to occupy it. And now South Carolina National Guard will be occupying the streets of Washington, D.C. And then on top of that, today, the Secretary of Department of Defense called for National Guard to be armed. Now, they have not been, but they will now be armed, walking through the streets of Washington, D.C. And it's important that people understand that the streets of Washington, D.C. are not just the monuments. Right. It isn't just the downtown federal area. It's Black communities. And so, in the middle of this deployment, for which they only have about 30 days, in the middle of this deployment, to then say, pull out your weapons, right, to patrol empty metro stations, right, seems again like a provocation, right? It seems like a provocation, an attempt to provoke people. Because their government is occupying them.
I mean, Adrian, you just gave me a whole history lesson right in there in this conversation. But yes, absolutely. And just even a little tidbit about South Carolina and just how we now see the former states of the Confederacy in many ways trying to do what their predecessors had not been able to accomplish over 100 years ago. And so what I have appreciated in terms of the people's response, right? Like seeing DC respond. I've seen clips of folks playing go-go music, right, to the chance to free DC. There have been daily protests, at multiple different junctures, and just really, people across the board saying like, this isn't happening, regardless of what neighborhood they're from, across the board. And I saw earlier today Trump claiming that Black women, the African American ladies, allegedly asked for him to come to Chicago in particular. And having grown up in Chicago, nobody Black is checking for Trump in Chicago. Or if they are very, 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 very minute groups that don't represent the masses of people. And so he is clearly indicating about how he wants to escalate against other places. He also said going into New York. And so this is a moment that's really calling on, all of us, because, you mentioned what's happening in Texas. I know what's happening there in California. We can't just treat what's happening in these different places. Well, that's not my state, so it doesn't matter for me. It all matters. It's all connected. And it's just really inspiring, though, to see the way in which people are standing up. And I think it calls on all of us. I'm based here in Atlanta. It calls on all of us to really figure out, like, what is our role going to be and how we oppose the ongoing and escalating, attack on everything that we're experiencing coming out of the Trump administration. Yeah.
And then obviously one of those things is this sort of ongoing attack on the Smithsonian. the set of museums that are a part of the Smithsonian. And yes, we know that they have singled out other museums. I also think that it's pretty clear that the one that they actually care about the most is the African American Museum of History and Culture, and the exhibits therein, right? And so I think it was this week maybe it was last week that they said that they're going to do a review, right? They're going to do a review of all the exhibits in the museums to make sure that they are aligned with the vision of America that this administration or this regime wants people to understand. And it's sort of like, it's sort of like, like the Ministry of Truth here, right? Like I know there's been lots and lots of 1984, references to Orwell's book, but this is the Ministry of Truth. This is the department that says you may not believe that even if it happened. It's the don't believe your lying eyes ministry, right? That we're gonna say that 2 + 2 equals 5, and you're gonna believe it, right? But this idea that this week we had the President of the United States say that the museums and I think we know which one he's talking about, but not exclusively, spend too much time talking about how slavery was bad. Well, slavery was bad, right? It was horrific. It was inhumane, right? And it was bad. And this idea that somehow we shouldn't talk about it so much is exactly a reflection of their ideology, or his ideology, particularly this regime's ideology, that somehow we need to educate people that it actually wasn't that bad. It was, it wasn't that bad. And, there were jobs, apparently, right? There's the black jobs that he's talking about.
I mean, this whole thing about slavery is not bad. It's beyond ridiculous, but it also is what we were talking about, when we saw the attacks starting to happen on the hard-fought curriculum changes that have finally been made in K through 12 in multiple places. The last few years, their attack on critical race theory, claiming it's about making people feel bad, somehow denouncing and not really wanting to tell the truth. And really what this is about, like you were saying, this is about the broader control, right? Like, who controls not just the narrative, but just the history and what we're allowed to know? Who controls the examples and the information of how our folks have stood up to tyranny, right? Who controls even the conversations on how and why we still have the disparities along race and gender and class that exist? All these things are connected to conversations about, this whole slavery's not that bad conversation. I mean, we're looking at what's happening, going back to Texas, right? We're looking at what's happening in Texas. We're looking at the desire to suppress black political representation and Latino, but black political representation, black political power. That's very much grounded in the foundation of this country, right? And while we were excluded from the ability to vote, the ability to own property, etc., at its inception, so we can't separate the slavery, and it's not just slavery, right? We're talking about these museums. Yeah. We're talking about the civil rights movement, which is not very long ago for many of our friends and family members. We're talking about so many other elements. And then also when you think about the creation of that museum, it took a very long time for that museum to even come into existence, right? It took and it's such a valuable resource. The Smithsonian as a whole is a very valuable institution for the entire country. And I mean, people probably come from all over the world, and it really provides resources and amenities similar to what we saw with public broadcasting, right? That communities don't readily have access to. And so this attack is about, one, like we were just talking about, keeping a version of a history that they want to promote moving forward, but then also cutting off the ability of people outside of certain class levels to have any information at all outside of what they're feeding them.
Right. And I want to talk about that when we come forward, the kinds of resources that are available that we kind of take for granted now, that, we didn't have, even 10, 15 years ago, and what that will mean for our memory, right? For the memory of our community. But more when we come forward with Anoa Changa. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You can earn one for free in as few as 5 months online with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma. That's lapl.org/diploma.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver Card, so let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything! The Capital One Saver Card is at table 27 and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu!
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver Card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are finishing up our conversation on the Trump administration's ongoing and continued attack on Black history, on museums, on truth, on all the things that frighten them, I think, that they don't want us to talk about, that they don't want children to be taught. Anoa, you were talking about that this is sort of a continuation and extension of the critical race theory attack, right? Even though there's no critical race theory being taught in elementary schools, that it simply just meant if you're talking about Black history, then you have to stop doing that, right? And so I think one of the things that's important to note is that the museums are, I mean, there's sort of an ecosystem, right? And the museums also are connected to, libraries, right? We've been doing a little bit of research on the relationship between museums and libraries in terms terms of how and where history is stored, right? How and where memory is held, right? For our community, for everyone really, but for our community in particular. And we know that a lot of those resources have been digitized, right? And that we can access them in ways that we never could have before, right? We can get go online and look at a copy of the 1870 census, right? We can learn about our families in ways that we could never have before. I mean, I have copies of the various census where my family is listed, right? And some of this it really is about in the way that we had oral history, right? So when we didn't have museums, right? When things weren't written down in books, right? And we relied on ourselves to have to keep the memory of not just our families, but of our communities and how we survived. We had to rely on oral history to pass that down. That all of that is held, right, in our museums now, and held in libraries. So talk a little bit about the resources, right, that could be lost in this battle over history and truth and memory.
Yeah, I really appreciate you naming that too. I mean, just as we've been seeing with when the administration came in talking about they weren't going to keep track certain data and information anymore. We've seen the last several years the fight around the maternal mortality crisis. I mean, that has been a huge issue, especially in terms of Black women, and just how that relates to other health indices, whether we're talking about, kidney disease, heart disease, you run down the whole list, just from that, just information gathering standpoint, what we see happening with Health and Human Services and the rollback on, valuable information and informed decision-making around, vaccination schedules and research and things of that nature. But when we're talking about the museums and the libraries, we're talking about I know a few weeks ago you had folks on talking about the attack on public media.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the ability of schools can, there are sample curriculums provided that allow schools to supplement. We know that there's a crisis and a burden on our teachers, the K through 12 across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a good resource that, college students are able to use. My son is a community college student here in Georgia, and he's been able to use, things that are connected to these different databases in his own coursework, right? And I know many other students probably do the same. So these are things that are when we talk about democratizing, we talk about democracy in a lot of different ways, but having the ability to be able to access information in this way that's digitized means that I don't have to physically be in DC or New York or somewhere else to be able to use these resources. If I'm sitting at my home, whether it's in Georgia, Texas, wherever, I can have access to that same information as someone who has the ability to be physically present in DC, right? There's so many different ways that the Smithsonian itself has helped to also resource and support other smaller institutions and museums, so that same experience that is in DC, other communities can have that as well. And you were just talking about also the relationship between libraries and museums. I mean, libraries themselves are such a great place for communities. Museums is, the programming that goes on in museums too. And it's a third space, right? It helps us feel connected. You were talking about our history and our culture, having that connection, having that understanding. I remember when the EJI Museum in Alabama, in Montgomery, Alabama first opened, 2017, 2018, and it was a cathartic experience for different reasons for different people present, but everyone there that opening weekend was in awe of how much, even if you were the most learned person, there was still something that we learned there, going through the lynching memorial, going through the actual museum, and I know they've been able to expand the site, but that is necessary. You can watch all the documentaries, but to really stand present and get that feeling and that information, that is a connection, and that's also strength. That's the other reason why they do this, Adrianne. They want to take our strength away from us, right? They want to take our resolve away from us. And that is why these attacks are happening as well.
Yeah. I mean, it does, it feels like because we're also not just talking, again, like we know they're talking about the American Indian Museum, right? We know that they're talking about, like they're talking about different museums. It does strike me as interesting, though, that in some of the other museums that you would not think of, right, as being places where, they're going to go in and say, whatever, this exhibit is woke, right? That they are still saying, well, this is the way they describe slavery in this museum that has nothing to do with Black history. And so we're going to strike that, right? So it really is like this sort of going through all the, like, there are things that they do not want told, right? There are things that they do not want discussed. And whether it is in a museum that is specific to that community or not, right, they're gonna try and have it removed. And there was an article in Huffington Post about a week ago about the ways in which the galleries, right, are also being reviewed, right? So the National Portrait Gallery, right, is being reviewed for whether or not it has, exhibits that do not, reflect America in the best light, or it's just really things that this regime doesn't like, right? So I think this sort of it translates itself also then to an attack on artists, right? Because our artists are going to be targeted, right? We've already seen one artist pull her exhibit, right, from the National Portrait Gallery, right? Because they tried to censor one of her pieces in her exhibit, and she said, you know what, I'll just take the whole thing out. Right? Like, you want to play, let's play, right? And so I think that we'll, like this, the assault, right, the attack will also begin to play itself out, on our artists, right, as an extension, right, of this sort of attack on culture.
And I think what you're just saying to close out is just also like we're looking at an attack on like free speech and free expression too, right? Like we're talking about the culture attack too. Like that has been such a strong way that we've been able to communicate our values and that we've been able to pass on, again, that strength, that encouragement from one generation to the next. And so by limiting that, there also, that's another pathway to just kind of really restricting what we can draw on for inspiration and courage in these moments.
Yeah. I mean, again, it is I want to, I continue to think about this as the attempt to make us erase our own memory of things, right? And so I think it's important that that we all start to, again, like resources that we've taken for granted, right? We need to recognize what those are and begin to from now on, if we had stopped doing it, right, we need to make sure at our family gatherings that we're retelling the stories, right? That grandparents, that parents and grandparents and great grandparents told, right? We need to make sure that we are sharing with younger generations, photographs, right, and all of the things, because there really is, I think, when we look at what this regime is doing, there really is an effort to memory hole us, right? To erase, and that's not hyperbole, right? When we start talking about going to museums and saying what exhibits can and cannot exist, right? When we talk about you can't talk about slavery, right? Because it wasn't that bad, right? That we know what's happening because we've seen this before. So it's going to be important for us to also be preserving memory for us and for future generations. So I want to thank you again for always coming on and sort of talking to me about what is the news of the week and breaking stuff down, and particularly on this issue, which of course is not going away. And I think we're going to see even greater, more egregious attacks. And so we'll want to try and keep a tab on this. But I want to thank you all also for joining and listening to me here at the Black Pack, and listening to all of our guests who certainly had a lot to say, and hopefully were able to inform you. Maybe you learned something that you didn't know today, that you didn't know yesterday, that you learned today. We'll be back next Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Enjoy your weekend.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. An appeals court has tossed President Trump's $355 million penalty in his New York civil fraud case, calling it excessive and unconstitutional.
They stole $550 million from me with a fake case. and it was overturned. They said this was a fake case.
Trump praised the ruling while the White House called it another failed attack. Black New York Attorney General Letitia James says she will appeal. Rapper Drake just launched an Amazon store called Drake's Warehouse, offering 30 items from his career.